everybody, this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey is brought to you by our title sponsor, NHL Sense Arena. Look, we all want our kids to succeed in hockey, but let's face it, finding training that's both effective and enjoyable can be a real challenge, and not to mention expensive and a total drain on time, especially if you have to drive to the rink, pay a private instructor. There's so many reasons that money gets spent on this game. But that's where NHL Sense Arena steps in. It's a virtual reality training game that brings the rink into your home that takes off-ice training to a new reality. It's designed to improve hockey sense and IQ, something that's lacking majorly in the game today for both players and goalies. And you get unlimited access to over 100 drills and training plans from top coaches and players that can be played anytime, anywhere, with drills approved by USA Hockey player and goalie development directors. Look, improving mental hockey skills at home has really never been more fun, and any hockey player that uses this is going to have a blast, all right? I've used this before on my own, and it feels like you're so immersed in an arena, you sometimes forget you have a headset on. And again, it's not being on the ice, but it allows you to work on some of these skill sets like scanning, as I said before, hockey IQ, looking around the rink, making the right plays, that getting those repetitions in now as a hockey player are super important for your development. So NHL Sense Arena is giving all the listeners an exclusive offer for $50 off an annual plan when you use our code HOCKEYNEVERSTOPS at checkout. Again, that's Hockey Never Stops. All you got to do is go to hockey.sensearena.com. Again, that's hockey.sensearena.com. Use the code HOCKEYNEVERSTOPS, and you'll save $50 on your annual plan of NHL Sense Arena. Make sure to check that out and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sense Arena. I'm Lee Elias with Mike Benelli and Christy Casciano-Burns, and we are privileged to welcome with us today the Director of Youth Hockey Development with the Washington Capitals, a team some of you may have heard from, Peter Robinson. With the Capitals, Peter's role is to grow the game of hockey by providing access to the sport throughout the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. We will refer to that as the DMV for those of you outside the East Coast today, through on and off ice programming for all skill levels. And Peter's no stranger to the Capitals. Prior to his role with youth hockey development, he oversaw community relations for the Capitals and is currently in, get this, his 17th season with the organization. That's like a full pro career. We got lots to talk about today. Peter, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, we're excited to have you. You know, Pete, I got to start with this. 17 years with an NHL club is no joke. Tell us about how you initially got involved with the Caps and why you've made this a continued commitment.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's 17 years is kind of amazing that it's gone by that quick. It is a dream. I grew up in Maryland. I was a Capitals fan. I played youth hockey growing up for Montgomery Youth Hockey Association and Chevy Chase, and then played for my high school, Sherwood High School. So I played all the way up until high school competitive hockey. And it's just always been a part of my life. My dad is from Windsor, Ontario. So it's just, you know, part of the tradition. As soon as you turn 2 years old and you can start walking, the skates are on and you're
Right
at the rink. So it's always been a part of my life. It's brought me so many different places and so many opportunities. So my degree was in psychology, marketing, and then my master's was in sports marketing. So my ultimate goal was always to work in professional sports, with that dream being working for the Washington Capitals one day, which
Wow.
I was lucky enough to accomplish in 2007. I started as a coordinator of amateur hockey and fan development, did that for 7 years, and then moved in the community relations role that you mentioned earlier. So that in that role, I oversaw like our player appearances, our signing sessions, hospital visits, granting wishes, you know, engaging with the community, Hockey Fights Cancer, some of those league platforms. But I always continued engaging and growing the off-ice form of the game.
Right.
And then in 2019, the Washington Capitals, as an organization, decided to invest in youth hockey and the development of the sport, and we created the Youth Hockey Development Department. So it's myself, Jessie Thompson is our senior manager of youth hockey development. She oversees everything on ice. And then Andrew Nash is our manager of youth hockey development. He oversees everything off ice. So there's 3 of us in the department now.
Obviously, it came about because you saw a need. What did you see, and why did you decide this is something that we gotta start pushing?
Yeah,
What was
it's
it that
it's
created it?
interesting. When I started in '07, you're looking at the early part of Alex Ovechkin's
Yeah,
career,
1 year
and a
in
lot
at
of
that point.
interest,
Yeah.
right? A lot of interest in the sport itself. When I was growing up, like at my school, for example, I was one of 3 or 4 kids that played hockey. And when you told somebody you played hockey, instantly they'd be like, "What are you, like Canadian or something? Like, why are you playing?" Well,
Yes, we get that all the time here too.
and so it was always this more of a niche sport. It wasn't very one of the mainstream sports, and that started to change with Alex coming in and the popularity. You saw that, just if you look at the graph, you saw that giant leap in registrations and participation in terms of the sport of hockey. So we saw a little bit of that in this market in '98 when the Caps went to the finals, but really when Alex came on, it really started to grow, and we started to do stuff in the community. And oftentimes it was, does anybody know the Capitals? A few kids would raise their hands. Or are you aware of who Alex Ovechkin is? A few kids would raise their hands. But the football team, they always knew the backup quarterback was. Started it. They knew all the players on the football team, the
Yeah.
basketball team, other sports, the baseball team. So it was really trying to take advantage of the excitement around Alex and the turnaround of the franchise, and really paying attention to trying to create fans and grow just the awareness of the brand. That's kind of what the original focus of our
You know what's funny is that I used to spend my summers in Silver Spring, Maryland, believe it or not. Pete, my grandmother lived there, and it was funny because once you kind of pass through Delaware at that time in the '90s. Now I was a hockey guy. I gotta shout some names out here, but like yeah, I remember Peter Bondra, Joey Juneau, Adam Oates, obviously Dale Hunter, and but you're right. I remember thinking those are huge names, and then Ovechkin showed up. It was like another stratosphere of player. And Alex Ovechkin, who I'm already saying is the greatest goal scorer of all time, even though he's still right below the record. It's actually interesting to hear you talk about his effect on the game and the reverberations of what a player like that can do to change it. Because again, there was no denying him when he came in the league. I'm going to ask you in a minute because I know you guys have just surpassed 1 million students in your hockey school program. But since we're talking about Ovechkin, I think there's a lot about Alex that a lot of people don't know. I was researching, I saw that he's funding something called the Alex Ovechkin Legacy Ball Hockey Rink in the region to kind of help the grow the game. And like you just said it, you started right after his arrival. He was drafted, I believe, in '04, but he couldn't play till 06, 07-ish because of the
oh
lockout.
05, 06, yeah.
Yeah, right. I apologize. You're right. '05, '06 was his first season. Um, Ironically enough, the Carolina Hurricanes ended up winning the cup that year, so that's even more for the kind of southern effect, right? But you witnessed firsthand that Ovechkin effect, and your team before the episode actually provided us some great stats that, to your point, the area has seen overall participation grow 70% since the '05-06 season, and then this is a cool one: girls' participation has grown 140% in that time frame. Um, you know, Outside the DMV, we see him as this mega superstar that he is. But tell us about him locally, right? Because again, in our respective NHL cities, we kind of know our athletes, right? Tell me about the Ovechkin locally that maybe we don't see nationally.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see him in his own community. I think the easiest way and most fun way to describe Alex is he is just one giant kid. He absolutely loves the sport of hockey. He loves to
He's a
play.
tough kid though.
He's a big
Big
tough kid,
kid.
right? And so he loves to play it. He loves to be around it. He loves to talk about it. He loves being on the ice or in a gym with kids playing the sport. He just enjoys the game of hockey, and that excitement is infectious. And I think what you see on the ice and how excited he is when he scores a goal and how much fun he is having just being in the game, he's like that off the ice as well. He just has this infectious energy, and he's always really trying to grow the game and make sure that he can share it with everybody, and so that they can experience it the way that he has, because it's brought him so much, and he enjoys the game so much. So those stats that you mentioned are massive. At what
Big
we
time.
call the Ovi effect, and it has been pretty impactful, and it's not just Ovi playing well and getting all these eyeballs on him. It's also a combination of Ovi being a mega superstar and then the organization itself investing in
Absolutely.
taking advantage of that stardom. to really provide opportunities for kids to watch the game, play the game, engage with the sport, learn about it. And that's kind of where we, where we roll into that hockey school program that you mentioned.
Yeah, Pete, I work a lot with the, a lot of the programs up here with the Rangers and the Devils and the Islanders and a little bit of Pittsburgh and all these IGF funded NHL, grant programs. But you see what you've done and the success you've had because of guys like Alex Ovechkin. Like I see him all over Asha's site, doing all kinds of work with Jen and we've had Jen on the show actually, and she talks about the Washington Capitals and Alex Ovechkin. But can you just tell us a little bit about your players and how they've embraced this opportunity to work with you? Because it's not always easy, right? These are mega superstars. But we see it from the hockey side, and I see it already, with all the guys I work with, like how willing they are and how they bring great energy. Like you would never know, they're being, it's almost like they're completely volunteering to be there and give their time. And they're probably some of the busiest people in professional sports. But can you just talk a little bit about the player, and not just Alex Ovechkin, but I'm sure you have a lot of your different players help you in doing these outreach programs. So just talk about kind of the difference between you've seen like these hockey guys, like what they really do and what kind of energy they bring to these.
Yeah, no, Mike, it's a really good point. The hockey players in general in the NHL are kind of known to be these community focused guys, and our players are no different. They have always been willing to help out and do appearances for us when it comes to the youth hockey side of things and helping grow the game. And of course, that's how they learned. That's how they got exposed to it as well. So there's so many players, even going all the way back to when guys like Jay Beagle and Carl Alsner were getting called up from Hershey, or Matthew Perot, they were getting called up from Hershey, and they were even only in town for a couple of weeks playing in a few games, and then they get sent back down. They would immediately, what do we got? Where are we going? Who are we playing hockey with today? Like, they were always looking for those opportunities to go engage with the community while they were here. And then when they became full-time rostered players, that continued. They were always looking for opportunities to be able to grow the sport. So they loved going to the school appearances, for example, because like PE was my favorite, subject. I loved playing street hockey in PE, and now I get to come here and just I have 300 screaming kids in the gym going nuts for me to be here, and I get to play street hockey and teach a kid how to hold a stick and like pass and shoot. They absolutely love it, and our players have been phenomenal. And I think it really is from the top down. That's always been from our management on the hockey ops side, and our coaching staff that we've had through the years have always been really supportive of our community efforts. So the players themselves do that as well. And you mentioned American Special Hockey Association, for example. That's a partnership that Alex has had since 2014, and just celebrated 10 years involved with that organization, and the impact that he has made. It's not just about the funds maybe that he's raised or the funds that he's donated. It's the awareness. Right? So many more people in this country are aware of special hockey and that it is an option for kids to play because of Alex and the eyeballs that he brings. So they realize that the impact that they can make is also on the awareness and the attention outside of them just interacting with the kids that they might see it.
Because it's easy for those guys to give a check, but it's really hard to show up. Like, it's just, and I fear, and I always want to get this on the record because this will be a good evergreen episode. But my fear is when I watch hockey now and I watch these academies sprout up and I watch these single focused, individualized, sport instruction and the earliest specialization of kids. My fear is that we will lose that community piece. We'll lose that piece that a player knows they got to give back because of, like, they just saw volunteer coaches, mom and dad, struggling to get them to the rink, teammates that came from every socioeconomic background there is. And and we see it every day in this podcast, talking to different people, it's shrinking, like all. And so your programs like yours, kind of burst that bubble a little bit. Like they get in there and they say, the hell with all you, specialized kids. We're going to go out for hundreds and hundreds of millions of kids and give an opportunity. I was just in a rink in the Bronx with Brian Mullen, and, he grew up in New York City. And for a guy like that, we're literally on the rink, and Lee mentioned like the ball hockey event or, a rink that Alex is building. Like, this guy standing in a rink and he's pointing up to all the co-op buildings. He's like, this kid lived here. This kid lived there. that kid lived there. And he goes, all these guys, like we laugh and what, you know, everybody talks about, you know, Minnesota hockey and the great, you know, opportunities these kids get because they're on the ice all the time. Programs like what you're doing, I mean, I look at like the programs in New York. I mean, there's more kids probably on that, you know, in the Bronx than the whole state of Minnesota. So when I see the impact that programs like yours bring to just light the lamp of just, you know, just these small, tiny percentages of kids, not that they're going to be NHL hockey players, but that they're going to be active, participating, and back to those roots of being in a team, just like you said, having fun, laughing, and loving the opportunity to, you know, play a sport they normally would never get to play if, in fact, this you know, this outreach didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, that you make a really good point in terms of like the concentration of kids in the Bronx, right? You look at you know, Lee, you mentioned our stats. We've increased our then those numbers that you mentioned, 70% growth and then 140% growth for the girls. Those are USA Hockey registration numbers specifically. So those are just, we're talking about just ice hockey.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And
Yeah.
so that's, I think, the biggest mission that we have as a department and as an organization is that there are multiple forms of the game, and it's really trying to educate people that it's not just ice hockey that is the option. And like Mike, you said, waking up super early or trying to find ice, or mom and dad are working jobs so you can afford the game. Those are all real things that apply to the sport of ice hockey. Ice hockey is very expensive, and ice hockey can be very restrictive. There's a lot of hurdles you have to, you know, overcome in order to maybe be able to access that sport. But street hockey and inline hockey are not so much. They are way more accessible and way less expensive than ice hockey itself. So it's really also educating that there's 3 or 4 different forms of the game. I mean, if you count esports as well, we consider a kid that plays esports a hockey player. And realistically, there's some kids that play, you know, NHL on PlayStation, for example, that maybe have never played hockey in real life, but probably know more about the game than kids who play hockey every day because they're changing lines, they're changing, you know, power play setups, they're doing the coaching there. So they know how to follow the game. They can be fans. And so it's really about accessing those different forms.
Right. And I guess let's go a little farther into that for people who are listening, organizations are listening. They don't have the OV factor, and maybe not a lot of money behind them. What advice would you give to help grow the game? And as Mike said, a lot of these programs are contracting, they're shrinking, they're disappearing. So how do we put the juice back into it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do believe that it is different forms of the game. I really do believe that, like you talked about, we talked about those USA Hockey stats a minute ago. That's about 12,500 youth that are playing currently in the DMV. If you count all of Maryland, DC, and Virginia, you have around 22,000 total USA Hockey registrations, and we're at capacity. We have around 40 facilities, around 50 sheets of ice in our market. And if we go into a school, for example, and we have 300 kids in a gym and we put on a presentation about hockey and we magically convince all 300 that they want to play hockey, we probably don't have room for them on the ice. There's just not enough ice for them to be able to join a team and participate. So really the ultimate growth of the sport, and as you want to make it bigger and also diversify it, it really has to be off ice. There has to be other forms of the game, and you can try and create a pathway to participation on ice if that's our ultimate goal, to grow ice hockey. But we are okay if they just stop at street hockey or inline hockey and they never move on to play that ice hockey, because they're still involved in the game. They're still engaging with our brand and the sport, and they are able to watch it and follow along a little bit better.
I don't want to gloss over what he just said. You said there's 50 rinks in Maryland, Washington, and Virginia.
Yeah, there's about 50 sheets of ice in that 40 facility.
I just want to, I want to stress quickly to everybody listening. I want you to just think about Maryland and Virginia. Now, obviously DC is in there. Like, that's a lot of land, and that's not a lot of rinks, especially when you look at, like, I'm in Philadelphia, where Pennsylvania has a tremendous amount of rinks. I know that in the inner city of New York, this is also an issue, but the New York area has, or if you're in New England, you have 50 rinks within an hour drive, right? So I just want people that understand that. Mike, go ahead. I wanted to give some perspective on that
Yeah.
because when you said
Well,
that,
no,
I'm
but
like, "Oh,
you're exactly
yeah,
right. So I think, you know, and we're not asking Peter to solve the problems of the world here, but I think the biggest issue, right, is that these programs are so successful
right,
that the higher groups, like the travel level and the traditional hockey market, we'll call it squirt for Lee's sake, but 10U, 12U, you know, 15U, yeah, you know, when that market hasn't caught up to the success of the learn to play and rookie league market. So we're seeing this, like Peter said, like, yeah, we could we could have 100% success rate, but even at 20% success rate, there isn't anywhere for the kids to go on the ice
right,
because because we're still stuck in the model of, well, a 10U team has to have 13 kids on it and a goalie, and they play full ice. So all of a sudden now that eliminates, like for like Peter's group, like his like Peter, like a typical learn to play has like 60, 70 kids on the ice. And
Yeah, our so for example, our learn to play has been going on in our market since 2016. And that's one that Jessie Thompson oversees, and she's done an amazing job partnering with all of our local rinks to implement that program. It's this season, it'll be in over 21 rinks
wow,
throughout our
that's
market.
fantastic. Congratulations on that. That's
Thank
huge.
you. I appreciate that. It's been a great program for the NHL in general. But since 2016, we've had 8,500 kids go through that program, which is an increase in participation for sure. Our All Caps All Her platform that is just focused on getting girls and women and females involved in the sport. The programs that we have run over the last 2 years, if you look at the registration numbers, those programs alone account for 13% of the new female USA hockey registrations in our market.
That's awesome.
So those programs have an impact and they do grow, but you also have to have the facilities to grow with them. And that's why, Mike, you mentioned the Industry Growth Fund. That's why when we initially had the opportunity to apply for grants going back to the 2013-2014 season, we wanted to focus all of our efforts on off-ice programming. And so we started to invest in refurbishing and current and existing ball and inline rinks in our market and building new ones. And then growing and expanding our hockey school program. And since then, we have invested over $3.5 million in the off-ice game. We currently have 14 outdoor street hockey rinks that the Capitals have.
How much money was that?
It was about 3.5 million so far.
Wow.
Between the
I thought you said that.
NHL, NHLPA,
Right.
Washington Capitals. So combined, that's where all that money is coming from.
You know, Pete, I want to dive into this. I have a lot of stuff here. I actually want to talk about your direct work, but this is a broader thing that I want to actually talk about, because when I was working with the league and working with some of the member clubs, one of the stats you hear a lot about is lifetime value of a fan. Okay. And it's a very misunderstood stat, because if you're just looking at that, you go, all the clubs just care about money. And it's like, you realize really quickly the investment that clubs, the league, the PA make into cultivating a fan and their love for the game is so much deeper than just the dollar amount. And you said it in your work directly, like, you know, for Washington, you're the guy. I said that you said earlier about Ovechkin and his love for the game. And I see that across the board with high level players. The love is an obsession. They love it. It's a passion. You can't create that for someone, but you can cultivate it. Right.
That's right.
And it's, to me, the lifetime value of a fan starts with your programs, because it's all about making the kids love and fall in love with the game. And this is the other side of that stat. The whole hockey world works together to create new hockey fans, however they do it. You just mentioned before, so many different ways kids can be involved with the game. You mentioned video games. Look, you want me to be perfectly honest? You want to learn a new sport really quick? Have your kid play that sport on Xbox or PlayStation. They'll learn the rules in 2 days. Right? You're having a problem with offsides? Have them play NHL, have them play NHL, whatever. Right? You're going to learn the rules really quick. That's how I learned several sports, right? Just by growing up by that. But it takes a really special person and a really special team to understand how to cultivate that love for the game. And you guys do that, right? So again, before I dive into any more stats, and again, I really want to talk about this million kids in the program, because that's a huge accomplishment we want to commend you for. But can you talk about, when you go to any event, how in your mind it's like, I have to help these kids understand and love this game, because there's a higher calling here, right? Hockey is not the most popular sport in the world. Like, you know, when you're in the game, you think it's the world, but it's so small. like when you think about it. So can you just talk about like the responsibility of that? That's kind of where I'm going of
Yeah.
of the game.
No, no. I see where you're going with it. I think it's really important, to go back to what you said in terms of the value of that fan, right? I believe it's the Deloitte research that the NHL will quote oftentimes, which is a new hockey player equates to 2.5 new hockey fans,
Right.
right? Which I believe is two parents and a potential sibling.
Right.
For
That's
that
the
hockey
0.5,
player.
by the way. For
Yeah,
that.
right. So
My dog wears a jersey every now and then. So, but
that
Yeah, there you
counts,
go.
right?
That's a canine fan for life. Go ahead. Sorry, Pete.
So it's there is a value there, and it is oftentimes overlooked that there's a lot of what the organizations are doing when it comes to the youth sports perspective, and that can be across any sport: the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL, even in the MLS. It is a long-term investment. The ROI on what we are doing is realistically 10 to 15 years from now.
Right.
And you had mentioned earlier when we started that I had been here for 17 seasons. I'm fortunate enough to have been here long enough where kids that did mites on ice my first or second season here are now graduated college, and they are season ticket holders at the Capitals, and I run into them at the games and they
That's
come up and they say
amazing.
hi to me. And
That's
so
amazing.
that's the long-term payoff there, right? And there is a short-term ROI in terms of maybe revenue from registration fees, which really don't bring in. Usually, the registration fees pay for the program itself, and that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
But you can create revenue through sponsorship. You can create revenue through media value and promotion of those programs. So there is an opportunity for immediate ROI, but realistically, we're looking at the success in the future of this organization. Right. And we're looking 10 to 15 years from now. So a kid that's 8 years old getting involved in the game, in 10 years, they'll be 18 and maybe be able to make their own financial decisions. In 15 years, they're in their early 20s, they're graduating college, they're going to get a job, they're going to have their own disposable income. How are they going to spend it? Where are they going to be spending their time on the screen? Are those eyeballs going to be paying attention to hockey, or are they going to be paying attention to something else? And I think that's a big focus of ours, is that we have to remember that this is a bigger picture, and it's more than it's not just about us and what we're trying to accomplish here and get accolades and win awards or get kudos for the programs that we run. It really is about the future of the sport and the future of the team itself. And all three of us that are in the youth hockey development department are from this area. This is my community. This is where I grew up. My son is 7 years old. He's going to play hockey. Jesse played high school hockey in this area. Andrew Nash played college hockey at George Mason. So collectively, the three of us have been with the Washington Capitals for over 30 years. And so we really do care about the community and the brand itself and the success of the organization. So we try and think about what is the immediate impact a program can have, but what is the long-term impact that program can have on the community and the access to the sport. And that's really the ultimate focus when we're building something.
Yeah, what I love too is the byproduct of the Learn to Play platform across the NHL. And you talk about these million kids and thousands of new faces in the sport. One of the byproducts is these people go back out to their community and make hockey sound pretty sane. Like, they go back out and say, oh, no, we practice at 9 a.m. and I don't know, we got all these uniforms and the kids are on teams and I didn't have to go, we have a saying up here, no bridges, no tunnels, no tolls. And, and it just, you're in a rink and you feel like you're on a team and they leave because they feel it's normalized. Like it almost because you talk about the ball hockey initiatives and putting all those millions of dollars into refurbishing outdoor space and rinks. If we did that with every community, like every community I'm in, anywhere has a basketball net. Everyone.
Right.
And everyone has a soccer field. Yeah. And if everyone had a hockey rink, and it doesn't need to be an ice hockey rink, but if everybody had a surface that you would see kids with sticks and balls and roller blades and obviously protected with their hockey wraparounds, that they would be in a situation where they're playing hockey. And like you said, we say it all the time, like hockey is hockey. I love, that whole marketing piece is just true. Like when I leave an event like downtown Yonkers or inner city programming, those kids leave with saying, "Hey, Mom, I just played hockey today." They didn't have to mention ice, and Mom's like, "You don't play hockey. You're not allowed to play hockey. That's crazy." but then they see and go, "Well, I can play hockey in this market for basically under $300, and I get all my equipment for free." And you look, and you, so when you talk to hockey people, and Pete, you're saying this too, like when you see these people go through the system, and now you have, you know, adults that you're interacting with, and like, my skates cost $350, and that was 10 years ago. You know, that doesn't exist either
I was like, Mike,
anymore.
they don't cost that much now.
No, I know. Well, I don't buy skates, so I think it's I think it's like one of those things though. But what the NHL has done, and the Capitals have obviously taken and blown up, is getting kids on the ice at a reasonable time, a reasonable cost, giving all this access. Yes, I mean, if on your side, yeah, the fans, they're buying jerseys, they're buying season tickets. Mom and dad now have to watch the game because the little kid loves it. So like, oh, geez, now I got to watch hockey. But more importantly, it just, for all the rest of us, the crazy hockey people, it normalizes the sport. It's like you can actually talk to people like, well, you can do it this way, or you could do it this way.
Right.
But for a long time, it was only one way, and that was get in the car and travel all over the place. Now you could be in one rink and play for, I mean, like you're down your area, right, Pete? I mean, you could play in one rink for probably 2 or 3 years straight, never leave the rink, and still play. You know,
Absolutely. No, you're
It's
absolutely
funny,
right.
yeah, you should say that, Mike, about a basketball court, and that's true in my neck of the woods too. Along with that now are pickleball courts
Yeah.
everywhere. So if we could
Everywhere.
somehow figure out, since, you know, in pickleball is
Pickle hockey.
I
Let's do it.
pickle hockey.
Pickle hockey.
Let's do it. I think we should be inspired by that it can happen. Because look at the craze there. We could do the same thing with
Right.
floor hockey. Yeah.
That's a really good point, and that is a different version of a paddle sport, right? So
Exactly.
you think tennis, you think badminton, you think pickleball,
Right.
and then padel. I know it's really
Yeah.
popular in the New York area. So it's they're just different forms of the game. And I think that, Mike, you make a really good point. Oftentimes the NHL or the NHL clubs, or just hockey in general, ice hockey in general, it's not necessarily any wrongdoing by the league or by the teams, but it's storytelling opportunities. And what is the best way to do that when you're in the playoffs, for example, and you have a superstar player? You tell the story of them coming up through the ranks as a child and becoming a superstar. And what do? You talk to their parents, or you talk to them and go, oh, mom used to wake up at 3 a.m. and drive me 4 hours to the rink. And those are great, heartwarming stories. But what they don't realize at the same time is, for somebody that's not familiar with the sport, all you're doing is saying, this sport isn't for you. Because you have to wake up at 3 a.m.
It
You have to drive really
reinforces all
far.
of, yes, exactly.
we-
It's
and
a
so there
reinforcement
is-
of everything that they hated about hockey. Like,
Well, it's
no
like
way
that
am
joke.
I doing that.
It's like the joke going around about, you want to be a teacher. I go, hey, do you want to try to force people to learn something they don't want to learn, and sit there and and not get paid for it? You know, it's like, yeah, I want to sign up for that.
Exactly it. So it's
Yeah.
really about partially how we market it, and how it is promoted, and how it is perceived by the community. And so that's why, Lee, going to you wanted to talk about the hockey school program.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
really tried to focus. My background is, prior to the Caps, coaching. I've coached and I've taught for a long time. I was a PE teacher for a few years as well. So the most
wait, Pete, I just want to reiterate. He's not kidding to the audience. I looked at your resume. I'm only interrupting you to help even qualify what you're about to do. This man has coached for several years in several sports. So like, he's not just saying, oh, I've coached. Like, you've been around the block in coaching. I just want to make sure our audience knows that.
No, I appreciate that. No, it's just been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember, is trying to provide kids an opportunity to play sports. I loved sports. I learned so many social skills. I learned so many different life skills through sports. I learned teamwork. I learned how to win. I learned how to lose. Most importantly, that's a big one that kids need to learn. And just the competition. And if you work hard at something, you can get better, and then you get rewarded for it. Like, that's really fun. Same thing. If you study really hard and you practice your math and you ace your math test, it's the same type of reward system. We're just doing it through physical activity. And the philosophy was, instead of trying to take this old school way of thinking in terms of, let's bring the kids to the sport, right? We're always thinking about, how do we bring kids to the rink to expose them to the sport? Let's flip it on its head. Let's bring the sport to the kids. And every kid is in school. Some kids are homeschooled, but for the most part, majority of your kids are either in a public school or a private school. And most of those kids are learning sports for the first time through PE class, and that's where they're getting exposed to them. And we realized that the biggest hurdle for that was financial. For the, like, if you go off our current stats, it costs us about $350 per school to provide them a full set of street hockey equipment so that they can implement street hockey in their PE curriculum. But if I'm a PE teacher and I have a limited budget, that $350 can probably buy enough basketballs, footballs, soccer balls, and baseballs for the entire season or school year for the entire school. And if I'm not familiar with the sport and I don't really know how to teach it, why would I take that big part of my budget and invest in something that I'm not sure the kids are going to enjoy or want to engage with? So we decided to, let's take the sport to the kids and go to the schools. And so starting off when we in 07, when we first implemented the program, we were only going to about 16 to 20 schools and introducing it. And for the most part, it was more of a media event, because we would have Mike Green and Alex Ovechkin, we would have Jay Beagle and Matthew Perot, we would have John Carlson and Carl Alsner. We'd have these players come with us. The coaches would come with us. I mean, I've probably gone into at least 50 schools with Dean Evison and taught PE classes when he was one of our assistant coaches here. You know, so it was great to have the support of the players and the support of the coaching staff. But then when we left, if the teacher doesn't have those skills to play hockey or to teach hockey, how are they going to utilize that equipment? So I would always follow up with them and say, you know, give us a shout, give us a call. We'll come back. We'll help you implement the program. And they always called.
Right.
And we started to learn that, okay, it's not just the financial component of donating the equipment. It's also the education component of educating the teachers and teaching them how to play and then giving them the tools. And so what we found was once you gave all of that to them, there was still the hurdle of, hey, this is really great. And my kids are really pumped to play hockey, but I need to write a lesson plan, or I need to make sure that whatever I'm teaching meets the educational standards for my school or for my county. And so that's where we really started to work on building our own curriculum. So we wrote our own curriculum in partnership with Shape America, that kind of oversees the curriculums for the governing body for curriculums for PE in the US. And we created this custom 80+ page curriculum that Andrew Nash wrote. And it meets every single educational standard in every single school and county in our market. So now when we go and go, here's the equipment, here's the training, and we're going to teach you how to play and teach the sport for the teachers. And also here's the curriculum that's already approved by your county. You've just removed all excuses and barriers. And now the teachers just pumped to be able to implement a new sport into their school.
You know, I'll tell you this too. My son in this area is he's playing floor hockey. He plays ice hockey, he plays multiple positions, but he was so excited about floor hockey at the school, and they've invited us to come watch. And it's funny because I don't know more than 2 of the kids in this floor hockey program because none of them play ice hockey, and I think that that's amazing. The other cool thing about it, Pete, with my son, and I'm there's kind of a little bit of a brag, but you know, I'm watching him help the other kids, which is like a total win for me as a dad at watching him. He is sharing the game. He's only been playing it a few years. I do want to mention this again with the hockey school program that you're talking about across the DMV. It was announced in January. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you just surpassed 1 million students involved with that program.
We did. So as Mike was mentioning earlier with the Industry Growth Fund, in 2014, we started receiving grants and funding through the league and the PA to be able to invest in our hockey school program. We completely flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we would have schools reach out to us and say, we would like you to come and do the assembly and introduce hockey to our school. Once we had the funding, we were able to go to the county level and say, we would like to implement this across the board in every elementary and middle school in your county. We have the funding to be able to purchase all of the equipment. We have the staff to be able to train your teachers, and we have the curriculum that's already approved by Shape. And it really changed the buy-in. So all these counties and all these school systems are like, 100%, we are in, tell us what we can do. And it just kind of took off from there. So for example, the first partnership that we made was with the city of DC, and instantly 111 public schools in the city of DC, that's every single public elementary, middle, and high school in the city of DC, had our street hockey equipment, had a curriculum, and we were reaching over 48,000 students.
Wow.
In terms of introducing them to the sport of hockey. And that has just since grown. And yeah, with our partnership with Prince George's County that we announced on January 4th, we are officially in over 1,600 schools and engaging with over 1 million students on an annual basis. That's not collectively.
Right.
Every school year, we have 1 million students
Wow.
picking up Washington Capitals branded street hockey stick.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
In,
Yeah, I
in
appreciate you
gym or
saying
on
that.
the blacktop. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an amazing stat, and it just goes to show that people in your position again and your team, what you do for the game. I think sometimes, especially in youth hockey, we don't celebrate that enough. You had spoken earlier about the long-term game plan when we were talking about fans, right? And this is a 10-year investment and or more. And I should say, the ROI comes in 10 years, right? And I think coaching, at least for me, and Mike, you can speak to it yourself, and Christy, you as a parent, when my mind was able to start thinking that way, because as a younger coach, I was like, right now, got to win, got to do, and then you got older, and I get older, and it's much more like, wow, I really want this kid to love the game when he's 18, and whether he plays beyond 18, he can continue to love the game, and maybe that the work ethic and the life lessons and everything he's or she has learned over this time period will spawn them to do something that they love to the best of their ability. Pete, you brought it up earlier. I want to commend you for this too. We talk a lot about making it to the league. We always get people asking that. You did that. It might not have been as a player for the Capitals, but here's a guy for our listening audience, loves the game, grows up. You are now really supporting your community, right? I mean, we're talking about the hockey. This goes well beyond hockey, what you're doing for these kids. We're not going to get into the stats of kids who do after school programs and how that just helps the community and is a large, helps these kids. But here's someone, you got 17 years with the organization. You are living that dream. You're working for your childhood team. You're making a massive impact. You've had now a longer career than almost all NHL players. I just think we got to commend that and also let the audience understand that there are so many pathways into this game beyond the playing. Right. And I am sure, and I would love for you to talk about this, and you spoke about this with your coaching, but everything you learned, perseverance, winning, losing, dealing with good teammates, dealing with not good teammates, that all plays into your role now, right? Like that's what made you the person you are today.
100%. It really is a big component of it in terms of introducing the sport to these students, but also then introducing them to the opportunities in that sport. It is not, we're going to go in and we're going to give a fifth grader a stick and they're going to pick it up, they're going to fall in love with it, and they're the next #1 draft pick. That's not, like we talked about, not necessarily the ultimate goal. If we start getting NHL draft picks from our market, we're ecstatic. That's phenomenal, but that's not our focus, and that's not the ultimate goal. But that kid that picks up a stick in 5th grade now might be like, well, I really like video editing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I could work for a professional sports team and do video editing. I love all the content. I love watching all the behind the scenes of LeBron and Steph Curry or Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. I could do that. I could be on the team plane and flying around with a professional team doing video editing or doing stats or doing PR. I could be in ticket sales. I could be in sponsorship. I could be in operations and be in charge of turning an ice rink into a basketball court and a basketball court into an ice rink. So getting the arena ready. So there's so many job opportunities, and I don't think many people are aware of them. And you mentioned kind of growing up here. I oftentimes we would get asked when we were kids, well, what do you guys want to be when you grow up? And almost all of my teammates said they wanted to be an NHL player. And I used to say, I want to work for the Capitals.
There you go.
And people would almost find that more unbelievable. They're like, you don't
Yeah.
can't work for professional teams. That's not how,
Yeah.
there's not those opportunities. But I was exposed to it at a younger
Yeah.
age, knew that could be a possibility. And that was my goal that I set out to accomplish, because I wanted to be able to share the sport with everybody.
I can say with confidence that anyone listening to this whose kids want to work in the game, or you think they might one day, if they have enough passion, they have the right work set and the right work ethic, it is insanely possible. It's hard to get in. You got to pay your dues like anybody else, in the sense of like you might have to do a job a little bit you don't want to do. That's part of the journey, right? We get that on the ice all the time. Mike and I talk about roles all the time on the ice, right? But it is very possible if you have the determination and the drive to get into an organization in hockey. I believe that. I think it's hilarious that you said people said, well, no, I mean, you can't work for the Caps, and it's like, yeah, wait. We're all trying to make the NHL here, but you said that was the funny one. But no, thank you for sharing that, Pete, because I don't think we talk about that enough. Just the love of the game. As I said, you can't create it, but you can cultivate it. And your ability to cultivate that love into something can really impact someone's life so far beyond playing, right?
Yeah.
Again, you can't play forever either. You know, anybody over 40 knows what I'm talking about, right? You just can't do it. So,
Well,
I think it's great.
it's interesting that you're also talking about just the exposure of the game and the growth of the game.
Right.
I know that Christy and Mike both touched on this earlier, and that is really, we've noticed that we're kind of getting capped here in terms of growing the game on the ice. And so if you take that
No
1
pun
million,
intended. I have to say it. Sorry. It was right
I
there
was
for
totally
me.
on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Good choice of words, Rob.
Let's
Sorry.
let's take those million students, right? Less than 3% of those kids decide to play ice hockey, and we've more than doubled the current USA Hockey registrations in all of Maryland, DC, and Virginia combined.
Wow.
And that's a massive that's a massive amount of increase in terms of the participation on the ice, and you're going to need more ice. So where are those kids going to play? And you mentioned the after school programs. We do try hockey for free programs, right? If a kid comes and signs up for a try hockey for free program for street hockey, we can get them to the rink, have an hour clinic, and then leave with a Capitals branded street hockey stick and a ball and a puck to take home with them. And it costs our organization less than $20 to get that kid involved in the sport.
Wow.
And so the cost for participation is really not that high when you look at the off ice. If you look at the cost per student with our hockey school program, it's 50 cents, right? It's just under 50 cents. It's technically 49 cents per student is what it costs the Capitals organization to give these students access to the sport of hockey in PE class. And so when we hear people say, hockey's not accessible, hockey's too expensive, hockey's not diverse, or it's not inclusive, there are some truths to that, but mostly it's relating to ice hockey. And so when you talk about the off-ice game, out of those million students, about 48% of them, according to the demographics of the school system, 48% of them identify as female, and 67% of those students are diverse. So they identify as a race or ethnicity other than white. And so that is a massive increase in participation and diversity of the game. And all of those students are all over the spectrum when it comes to economic diversity, and let alone maybe their ethnic background or their ethnic diversity as well. So it really is exposing the game and providing an opportunity for it to grow, and letting these kids know that it is an option for me. I just have to choose which form of the game I might want to play.
Right.
What are you hearing from the families who just suddenly discovered this option and now they're hooked?
Most of them, first of all, they say they love it, right? And they can't wait to participate again. But a lot of the time it's, I didn't even know this was an option. I didn't even know that I could play street hockey. I didn't even know that that was a thing. A quick story about, for the rinks that we were building, street hockey rinks. When we knew we were going to be getting this funding, we had to start researching where all of these outdoor rinks that already exist in our market, where they are and what shape they're in and what investment might be needed to improve them. And at the time, I had an intern that grew up outside of Baltimore, loves hockey, loves the Caps, and played street hockey with his brothers and his friends all the time. One of these rinks that was already existing was less than a mile from his house, and he had no idea that it was there. This is a kid that played street hockey all the time and didn't even know that there was an outdoor ball hockey rink near his house until he was in college and interning with the Capitals and doing this research project. So it is also about the awareness of where the facilities are and the different forms of the game that you can play. And I think that's the biggest component of it.
So Pete, final question from me, because we're kind of getting close to time now. You're in a position here. I'm going to put you on a little bit of a pedestal and put you on a spot a little bit. But as someone who's been involved with an organization for 17 years, you're overseeing literally the cultivating of love of hockey for millions of kids. If I put you in front of every hockey director in the country right now, every rink, they're all looking at you. What is your advice to them? Because hockey director is a unforgiving position. All the problems come back to them, but they have a massive responsibility to their organizations and their clubs to really make this experience worth being there. But they also have to make you want to stay with those teams, right? It's a major challenge because we talk about on the show all the time. The grass is always greener on the other side, right? For these kids, for these families. If you could speak to them and share some advice to them, what would you tell every hockey director in the country?
I would tell them that you have to make it fun. If it's not fun, kids aren't going to want to do it. And that's just the reality of it. My son is 7 years old, and if something isn't fun, he's like, I'm kind of over it. I want to do something different. It's not, well, why is it? Oh, maybe it's the coach is not that much fun, or the sport, or the way they're being taught the skills, you know? So first of all, it has to be fun. That's the biggest component of it. And then to your earlier quote, one of my favorites is the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
Right.
And so water the grass in your rink, or water the grass in your community, and provide those fun opportunities for these kids to engage in the sport. And it's not just the kids, it's also the parents. We all know that hockey parents, I'm sure you talk about it on this podcast often.
Every episode. Yeah, no.
How intense hockey parents can get, right? I was fortunate enough to get humbled very early on with playing youth hockey in this market, and then going up in the summers with my dad, spending time in Canada with his family, and going to camps and playing in leagues up there. And I very quickly learned I am nowhere close to the greatest hockey player of all time. I mean, I have kids at this camp in Canada telling me that the kid that's skating circles around me is the worst player on their team.
Right.
Obviously, you know, so it was really just about being around my teammates and having some fun. And that was something that my parents were always pushed. And it was just about enjoying the game. And if it's not going to be fun and you're going to get super upset at it, or it's not going to be enjoyable, maybe it's not worth doing. So I think the biggest component for hockey directors is to make sure that it's fun, but you also have to make it inclusive, and you have to make it a safe place for kids to want to play and for families to want to be a part of it. And that's a big component as well. Is you often hear that this phrase of like, hockey's not for everyone, or hockey is not inclusive, it's not a safe space, but it can be, and it really does come from the top. And
Right.
so I think that the hockey directors driving that forward and making sure that it is in a safe, inclusive space where everybody can have fun and everybody can participate, I think is really a big component of it.
You know, it may seem like obvious advice to those of you listening, but it is always something that needs to be reminded on a day in and day out basis. And again, Pete, that's not me saying that's not a great answer. It's a fantastic answer. It's just one we need to continue to say over and over again, because I think we can lose sight of that really easy, especially when parents are saying, well, this team doesn't win, or you're not going to nationals. And it's like, but it's not exactly the only reason we're here. You know what I mean? So fantastic stuff. Christy, Mike, any other questions before I close this
No,
out?
I just what you're doing is great, and what you just said, Lee, is so important. It's not all about going to nationals, because now that my kids are in their 20s, I can see the hockey skills translating into their everyday lives so easily. My daughter, just a couple of weeks ago, her boss came up to her. She went in early, she worked through her lunch, she stayed late, and she did that all week long. At the end of the week, he said, did you play on a sports team? Because you got one heck of a work ethic. She said, yeah, I played hockey. He goes, that explains it. Because he knew, and he happened to be connected to, the local hockey teams. He knows the kind of investment that a hockey player has to put in, and the sacrifice. And it really, and my son, same thing. But it's amazing. You can see all that work, all that energy, all that time, all that money, all the fun that they had over the years is now translating into their young lives. And it's pretty exciting.
It's germinated into the flower that they are today.
It's
It
a really
really
good point.
has.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is worth it. Moms and dads out there, it's worth it. Yeah.
It's one of the first things that we look for, or me personally, that I look for when somebody is applying for one of our positions, whether it be part-time, full-time, or even just working with different people around the organization. You can immediately tell somebody that played a team sport in terms of the willingness to work with everyone, and the teamwork that they have, and the way that they can maneuver around different personalities and handle different tasks that are sent their way. It's 100% noticeable. Someone that played team sports and someone that did not.
And a funny end to that story. So the boss made an announcement, hey, everybody, I'm going to let everybody have the afternoon off so we can all go out and party. If you have any work left, bring it to Sophia Burns. She'll stay here till it's done.
I'm sure she'd love that.
Yeah.
Mike, anything before we go?
No, just if you see guys like Peter and his staff, go hug them and say, you forget how much work these guys do. I mean, I've been fortunate to be on the inside of a lot of these events, and it's every morning, and outdoor ball hockey events. Even in Maryland on a Wednesday morning are probably not the great. It's not 80 degrees and sunny. But again, it's just the amount of schools and the amount of programs that go into this, and what I love about Peter, what you do and your staff, like when you watch the events, they're always high energy, professional events. Like you wouldn't know, all the participants like, oh my God, this is like unbelievable. They're doing this for us. Yeah, well, we're doing this for 1 million kids. So to really go out and make those million kids feel special and feel like, that impact was the same for the first kid as it was for the last kid in the last day of the season. It's tough. It's hard work. And I know from my side, it doesn't go unappreciated, but it's really great to see, the NHL program step up, use these, the resources you have in a positive way. And hopefully it benefits all of us that love the sport of hockey, because the more kids that are, sitting around Stop and Shop that, look down the aisle and they're wearing hockey jackets and they're hockey fans and hockey players, I don't know. I find it more interesting to talk to them. So it's all good. I love it.
Right.
I really appreciate that.
Teams, right. AHL teams too need to step up too. It's not just NHL, but AHL teams can also do that in local communities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The AHL, the ECHL, all the developmental leagues, that they have the staff and they're starting to invest in growing the game and providing that access. And Mike, you mentioned it, and I really appreciate those kind words, but there's youth hockey development staff at each one of these NHL clubs, and they do amazing work. And they have, successful programs that are each club has a program at the very least that's probably the standard in the league or the best in the league. Right. We look at our hockey school program as one of those. We share all of our ideas with each other. We consider it an opportunity where rising tide raises all ships type situation. And so if Dallas or Nashville or Arizona is growing the game and creating more hockey fans, it's only going to benefit the Capitals in the long run as well. And so we really do work together to provide opportunities to be able to support each one of these clubs and make sure that the programming in their community is being supported as well.
Fantastic.
Well, Pete, as I close this out, I'm just going to say on behalf of our group, but also our audience, we don't always get the opportunity to do this, but just want to thank you, your team. And like you said, you could probably put this out to the entire NHL. You're affecting millions of lives, right? Mm-hmm. And that is a real calling to be able to affect millions of lives, not just to love the game of hockey, but to give them the life skills to be better citizens and more productive citizens, which is something we probably desperately need right now. And you are a community leader. Might not be your title, but it's true. And everybody who works with you and in your team is doing that. So I just want to thank you for that as a parent and as a citizen and as a hockey fan. I think all three of those levels it works.
Well, I really appreciate that, and thank you for the kind words. It was a pleasure to be on today, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
No, thank you. And for everyone listening, remember, Pete Robinson works for the Capitals. The Capitals are a team and our sponsor, NHL Sense Arena, that you can play as if you dive in there. I'll remind everybody, you get $50 off an annual subscription. Head over to hockey.sensearena.com right now. Use our code HOCKEYNEVERSTOPS to use that. Another great way, joking aside, Pete, to experience the game in a new reality, right? But for Pete Robinson, Christy Casciano Burns, and Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. This has been another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. We'll see you on the next one, everybody. Skate on and have a great time out there. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.